Hey everyone, welcome to today's panel discussion. My name is Miguel Pena, and it is my honor and pleasure to be your moderator today. The name of the panel for today is Challenges Encountered by Service Companies, specifically in the Permian Basin. The focus will be specifically the evolving challenges faced by service companies in the Permian Basin, particularly in pumping and stimulation operations. We hope to address in our discussion today technical hurdles, economic pressures, oil price volatility, workforce restructuring, and future resilience with our esteemed panelists. We have a strong list of panelists today, and with that, I will turn it over to the panelists so that each of you can just give a brief introduction before we go on to the specific objectives and then right into the questions. So, Andrew, you'd like to go first?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Andrew Heft. I'm the engineering manager for NexTier's Reservoir Performance Group. I've been in the industry about 8 years, started with Halliburton and now with NexTier. Started as a field engineer, worked my way up to this position. So now today I oversee the sales, deployment, and analysis of kind of NexTier's full suite of diagnostic tools, including fiber optics, pressure monitoring, and different log analysis. So thanks for having me.
Thanks, Andrew. Shane?
Yeah, certainly. I'm with ProPetro Services, so I function as one of the engineering managers and oversee about half the fleets. I've been with ProPetro about 10 years, about 13 years in the industry, all in hydraulic fracturing, primarily based out of the Permian Basin.
Thank you, Shane. And last but not least, we have Ben Poppel.
Hi, thanks everybody for being here. Ben Poppel, I'm the director of field engineering here at Liberty Energy. This summer will be 19 years in the industry. Started out with Halliburton in Rock Springs area, and then went to a company called Superior, which evaporated into Neighbors Drilling, and then to C&J, and then to help make NexTier. I left there to go start a frac boat company in the North Sea. So I spent a couple of years living in Denmark, and then came back to get Liberty off the ground, or help Liberty get off the ground.
Great. Thanks, Ben, and congratulations on soon to be completing 19 years in the industry. That's outstanding.
Thanks.
So objectives for today are fairly simple, but I think we have some experts on the panel that would be more than qualified to meet these objectives. We want to examine technical and operational challenges in pumping and stimulation services. That's number one. Number two, explore how oil price fluctuations influence company structures and service delivery. And third, discuss strategies for workforce management and business sustainability. The first topic we'll cover is stimulation operations and pumping efficiency. I'll let you guys decide which order you want to go in. Just jump in freely. We'll try to make this as casual as possible. It seemed to work pretty well yesterday at one of the other panels I moderated. So the first question is, what are the current challenges in hydraulic fracturing and pumping operations in the Permian Basin?
Yeah, so really, I like looking at it kind of two ways, operationally, and then as well, technical understanding. So operationally, from a lot of the big challenges that NexTier sees is we're pushing our equipment a lot harder than ever before. We're seeing longer laterals, tighter well spacing, higher pump rates, larger volumes of sand and water, and the increased buy-in on the simul-frac and trimul-frac side of things. And so really all of this increases the wear and tear and risks of equipment failures. And when we look at the technical side, we're starting to see a lot more dedicated CapEx set aside from the operators, attempting to better understand what's happening below the surface. I think a lot of us really focus on the surface operations, but below ground, there's a lot of assumptions that we have to make. And I think starting to knock out some of those assumptions and get the better understanding, there's huge opportunities for doing that, especially as, people start transitioning to, a lot more infill drilling and some of their tier 2, tier 3 acreage. It's a really big challenge that You know, it's not sure if we'll ever be able to 100% understand, but getting farther up that understanding is going to be extremely important.
Great, thanks, Andrew.
Yeah, I guess just to kind of tag along with that is it's through the evolution of the last couple of years, it's just driving the pumping hours per day up. And everything entailed with that. It's just day in and day out maintaining high efficiencies. And it's just not an easy job on the service industry, on the equipment side, from all the way down to our operators. It's just a challenge day in and day out. As you know, we're a 24/7 industry, which we haven't always been. Really just cultivating just an environment of just maintaining that. A lot of that has to go into continuous improvement, because you know, every day it's what's the new problem, and we don't get to avoid those problems. That's never an option. So figuring out ways to tackle those problems, sometimes creatively outside the box, but whatever it is, we just have to find a solution every single time.
I would echo those guys' points. Absolutely. I think we've seen several different sort of chapters, if you will, you know, back when we were doing just vertical wells and daylight operations, you know, 15, 20 years ago, there was a major step change to going 24/7. And then I think we're facing now another major step change of the multi-well operation, you know, so simul-frac, dual frac, whatever the word of the day is for that. Changes up a lot of things, changes up more wear and tear on your stuff, changes up processes as well. All of a sudden you've got one person doing what used to be the work of two people. A lot more diverted focus from just a singular frac. You're now watching two at the same time, having to operate those potential risks independently of each other. But so it's kind of like splitting a hand in blackjack. You're like, yep, you can win more, you can lose more, and it gets very interesting. I think some of the next stuff too, you know, is the electrification of fleets or switching towards gas. You know, it brings in a whole other element. We've used diesel for so long, we're very comfortable with that, and that game changing now is another sort of evolution to the sport of fracking, if you will.
Thank you. All great answers. The next question is explore how oil price fluctuations influence company structures and service delivery.
I'll start, I guess. You know, that to me is always something I talk about with my teams here, because we're not directly tied to oil markets. To me, we are tied to it. It's definitely influencing it, but if oil hits $150 a barrel, but if there's still a tight frac market, excuse me, not a tight frac market, that's what'll drive frac prices, right? Granted, I think that connects through the equation to start to create more demand, but they're not directly pinned to each other. The way I look at it.
I like that thought. You know, when it's not a shock to anyone that the volatility of the industry is challenging to manage. You know, and I think in the past couple of years, especially, it's been even more important to be, you know, financially disciplined and really understand if a dollar you're spending is worth spending and if it's pushing you in the right way. And, you know, to tie back to some of the previous comments, you know, we're having one person do, you know, two people's jobs now, and, you know, the pricing has been so that we need to maintain such a lean and efficient organization that having the right people in place is so important. And, you know, going down the electrification route, you know, it's not just diesel mechanics on location. You got to have, you know, electrically focused people on location, which is challenging. And, you know, the swings of the oil field, you know, it forces us to evolve, but at the same time, you know, it allows us to continually kind of drive that efficiency where we can, and make our money and differentiation where we can, really in the market.
Just to kind of add on to what Ben was speaking about, we don't control the price of oil. So, one of the things we need to focus on is what do we control, our cost structures, and maintaining lean management. Control what you can control and just keep moving forward, because that's all you can control, to say the least. So we've been through a number of cycles in the past 7-8 years where we've hit the lows and the highs, and you can't make decisions based off of what somebody may say feelings. We have to plan for the future, and the best way to do that is lean management and just being efficient.
Great. Thanks, guys. All great answers. As it relates to the recent oil price volatility, what are some of maybe the obvious and maybe not so obvious effects and impact to the financial health of each of your respective organizations?
I'll speak on this first. I mean, so retrospectively, I've had some of those similar thoughts recently, and probably the biggest thing is that we had those lean management techniques in place early enough to where the pain wasn't as bad as it could have been in certain aspects. So we're in a healthy spot right now, and it feels good.
Yeah, I think to echo what James is saying, we've been through several of these cycles in the past decade, and the focus on efficiencies have been there. So I think, in the past it has been down market, you tighten your belt, you get as efficient as you possibly can. And it seems like sometimes when we come out of these into a boom cycle, people forget the lessons learned, which you can't do. You make more when it's good, but keep the practices of high efficiency for your dollar, and just running your shop clean. I think is a very important part. Maximizing every dollar and saving every dollar you can as well. I think that's one of the biggest things to try and drive into employees' heads is you wasting $1 means we have to make $5 more over there. Because we already had that $1. So
a great point.
Yeah, to add on, I mean, that yo-yo effect that happens with the downturns when looking at hiring and training is, it's a lot, and you're constantly trying to balance that on some of these downturns, and having that lean organization is so important to not necessarily contradict Shane, but NexTier, we're a company built on mergers and acquisitions, and so when that happens, naturally you start to kind of get the extra levels of management along the way. And so periodically companies like us you have to kind of refocus and restructure to make sure that you're maintaining that lean and nimble operating structure, and whether that's through attrition or through some of these downturns and the tough decisions you're having to make. It's really a kind of a refocusing, and that's I hate saying the downturns are good, but in a sense the downturns allow you to kind of refocus on what's important, because when everyone's making money and everything's great, it's awesome. The oil field's fun, but at the same time, maintaining that capital discipline and strategy through the highs and the lows make the lows a lot less painful, and the highs might not be as fun as some do, but at the same time, it's really strategic in making sure that in the end you're a profitable company.
Great. I couldn't agree more. I mean, we see it in our organization as well. I always say to our team, we should be running, when times are good, we should be running our business just as disciplined as when times are not good. It's just a responsible way to run a business, and it prepares you for the next downturn. It's not easy to do. It's easier said than done, right? Because I agree with you, Andrew. The oil field gets really fun when times are good. So it's hard to kind of pull the reins in and be disciplined in your capital spending and, really try to justify every dollar you spend. But just a good, responsible way to run a business. So it's great. All right. Well, I wanted to cover the oil price volatility was the third topic on the list, but I wanted to cover that one first because I think it's important. We can get that out of the way and then start diving in a little bit deeper into your operations in the Permian. So the next topic is stimulation operations and pumping efficiency. What are the current challenges in fracturing and pumping operations in the Permian specifically? I know you guys all work in big companies and you have operations across several basins. We want to focus on the Permian today for this forum. So if there's anything specific to the Permian or unique to the Permian, I think that's really what we'd like to, for our attendees' benefit, we'd like to hear about. I'm sure there's a lot of overlap and there's a lot of consistent themes across the basins, but for the Permian specific, I think would be helpful.
Jane, you lived there. Why don't you kick us off with that one, man?
There you go.
I think we kind of spoke on a couple of the highlights a little bit earlier in the conversation, but the Permian Basin is just a great place for the oil field industry, in my opinion. I think a lot of the nuances of other basins don't really exist here. I mean, sure, we are on the middle of nowhere in the desert, but we don't get too many of the extremes. I guess our extremes are probably the high dust storms when it comes to weather events, but my opinion, by and large, a lot of those things are kind of ironed out, and it really kind of points back to what we were speaking about earlier and just maintaining high efficiencies because the hours per day are available. So we butt up against that. Eventually, we're always all going to butt up against, how many hours of the day are there, and capturing every, speaking back again, past couple of years, 5, 7, 8 years, hours per day has just peaked significantly, and it's gone to, evaluating things from a stage per day basis into the hours per day basis, and then furthermore into attacking minutes for, NBT trends versus hours. And that's when it gets really skinny and the challenges amplify.
Talking with our VP of Ops, Jim Brady, purely from an operational standpoint, I think he's in love with the Permian. It's an oil basin, it's an oil making machine down there, and the community culture down there is also sort of oil focused as opposed to the operational difficulties here in the DJ Basin, where we're working in a much more residential area. So working out maybe it's dusty, but you're not in neighborhoods when we're working down in West Texas. Plenty of man camps, all the whole infrastructure is pretty good for what we do.
Yeah, and maybe I've just become acclimated to it. Probably one of our pain points is labor, getting people to come out here. I like I said, I've been here my whole career, so I probably got a little bit used to it, but it has improved drastically in the 13 something years I've been here. The amount of just residential housing is just not what it was when I moved here. It's not nearly as bad as it was, but at the same time, we are still pretty significantly separated from, more metropolitan areas and just where people are coming from.
Yeah, definitely. I think, we touched on a lot of the technical kind of aspects of it, but I completely agree with that. I think Midland itself has boomed as a, a city, and whenever I visit, it's just another city, and it's a great, atmosphere to be around, and probably one of the challenges I see, especially compared to my time in Colorado, is driving is a little scary out there. It's I-20's got to be one of the more dangerous highways in the country, and so the logistics of it all, an accident here or there can shut down a whole operation or a whole field of operations. So it's that's something that is not always seen in some of the other basins.
Yeah, I know I-20 all too well. And I remember visiting the Permian in 2008, and I was just there with Ahmed couple of weeks ago. And yeah, Shane, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, it's amazing to me, the growth, and the development for that area. It's come such a long way. It really is great. It's oil and gas. So good stuff. All right. Next question is, how are service companies improving pumping reliability and reducing non-productive time? What are some of the strategies y'all are implementing?
For us, behind safety, obviously these are two of the most important challenges to tackle. And, there's a multitude of ways to look at this. And for me, I'll keep it to two short ones. One of them is going to be credible training programs. I think, a lot of people focus, and, being an engineering background, we always like to focus on the engineering training. I think, adopting better training for the operators, the supervisors, management provide a lot of opportunities to kind of establish your standardized practices, and really help crews support each other, because everyone knows everyone's role. And then the second one is looking kind of at your maintenance strategy. I think maintenance is one of the larger cost drivers, and being able to leverage some predictive maintenance, but really have a good idea on condition-based maintenance is a key to being able to minimize some of those catastrophic failures and those really high dollar costs. And when things like that happen, it's horrible for everyone. Your reliability is going down, your NPT is going up, and that's how you lose work and aren't able to win work going forward.
So
go ahead, Jen.
just from the ProPetro standpoint, something that's kind of evolved over the past couple of years is building up that culture of just continuous improvement. And what I mean by that is just addressing the problems head on, and figuring out creative ways to discuss those things in an open environment. We've spun up some, just to give you an example, is our fluid and hours. If you rolled back a couple of years ago, I don't think we'd be very proud of where they were, but we instituted a program across the company and put it in spotlight, and just saw a very, very, we're happy with where we're at now. We're seeing a lot of improvement. A lot of it comes from SOP type training, like Andrew was speaking about, making sure people know what their expectations are, what the right way to do things is. Some of it is probably just from keeping it in the spotlight, and then also the program also entailed some form of a competitive competition between the crews, and competition always drives progress. And then engineering got involved, and we get to bring in the more analytical data points and just kind of help that fire starter really pick up progress and kind of have some hard conversations in a healthy environment.
Yep. I agree with everything those guys just mentioned, but I would also add, one of the things that's also changing things for us, at least right now, is data communication from the field. And by that, I mean streaming data. Back when I first started in the industry, you could barely get emails out because the satellite communication was so poor. Now it's so good that it's almost opening a Pandora's box. And I don't mean that necessarily a bad way, but all of a sudden, we can get so much data from the field. It's getting your head wrapped around what you can do with it. But predictive analytics, I mean, we can look at the health, and we have a center for it. Basically, you can look at the health of all of our pumps, all of our equipment in the field in general, centrally, as well as on location, obviously. So you've got that sort of second set of eyes checking things, but also starting to do analytics on this signal will mean you're going to have a problem with that unit next week. To have that predictive maintenance program going, not just based on, oh, it hit 1,000 engine hours, we need to do something, your oil changes and stuff like that, but it's, oh, this signal is coming in, and that means that discharge pump is starting to wear out, and next time you got a chance, switch out that blender even before it goes down. So doing things like that, I think, again, shaves the minutes, because we are to that point. There's a video I've loved over the years of an old I think 1960s or 1950s IndyCar race where they're doing a pit stop and they're knocking tires off with a hammer and they're fueling it up, and the announcer is, you know, ecstatic that they're out of the pit in like 60 seconds. And it then flashes forward to a Formula One pit stop and he's in 2 seconds, 3 seconds, in, out. If you pay attention to hours, your problems will be in hours. If you pay attention to minutes, your problems can be in minutes. So we've been tracking downtime and cause of that downtime in minutes for 12, 13 years now here at Liberty. And I love that because it's not just the downtime, it's knowing, you know, if we have 100 minutes of downtime on something, is it you had 1 minute downtimes 100 times, or did you have 100-minute incident? Because you'll attack those problems very differently.
Fantastic. Great responses and very impressive, you know, and how you guys, you know, run your operations and, you know, try to minimize downtime. And, you know, time is money, as they say. So in your business, every minute counts. So looking at it in minutes, you know, Ben, I think is a great point, you know, and focusing on the innovation side, what innovations do you all see helping to optimize stimulation performance and effectiveness? Anything in particular that y'all are working on or that you're able to share today?
To really go off of Ben, I mean, the data side of things is incredible what we're able to do and what we're striving to do. I think, you know, we're collecting, you know, more data than ever right now, and, you know, building automation and really, you know, the introducing, you know, things like AI into it are helping leaps and bounds, and trying to figure out how we can, you know, take some of that human aspect out of the operation a little bit is really starting to help that, and adopting, you know, some of those strategies of, you know, automating pumps and, you know, the operation really reduces that variability that operators don't like to see. You know, they want to see good performance and repeatable performance and obviously safe performance. And so when you're looking at that, adopting the digital side of the industry is hugely important. I think, you know, at the same time, the oil field is always seems to be behind the curve a little bit in the technology and digitization of it all. So I think really for NexTier, especially, you know, building that digital platform of, all right, we're going to collect the data in a good way so it's usable, and then trying to figure out, you know, what does this signal mean? Like for Ben, you know, this signal means this pump's going to go out, or however that looks. What does that mean, and how can we proactively do something with that?
Good stuff. All right, we're going to jump ahead to the next topic. I'd like to talk a little bit about cost pressures and service pricing models. So from your perspective, gentlemen, what are some of the economic constraints affecting service companies' margins today specifically?
I'll start. I think that probably the biggest item at the forefront right now is just a lot of uncertainty in the market. Some of it is related to just, you know, the incoming tariffs and supply chain markets. And then also in relationship, just there's probably just too many service companies in the market right now. Supply is higher than demand. And that has a lot of just lag effects and just makes it a little difficult on us sometimes.
Yeah, I think the ongoing focus on that capital, you know, discipline and operators really wanting more and more value at lower costs is, you know, quite the constraint on it all. And I completely agree with Shane. You know, there's so many different service companies out there. It's a flooded market, and, you know, we've seen a lot of, you know, consolidation going forward, and I wouldn't be surprised to see that kind of trend continue. But, you know, it's something that each company has to address and find the differentiator that works for you.
Yeah, I think some of that's coming to with you know, with what we would call mom and pop shops in the frac world. I mean, you know, myself and the other two gentlemen on the panel here are are pretty big players in the industry, but there's also a lot of small shops out there, which, you know, as the industry is trending towards electric or gas, basically non-tier 2 equipment, they're getting pinched out. It's you can see it in the reports. It's not happened yet, but it definitely makes for an interesting path forward for some of the smaller companies. Sort of a adapt or die situation, but before they die or adapt, we're in this mode right now where, you know, they try and be a price competitive model, but sometimes can't keep themselves afloat long enough or bring the service quality with it either. So
Yeah, those are all great points, and I agree with you, Ben. I mean, you look at some of these smaller mom and pop service companies, you know, even some of the more successful ones, you know, they have a problem on their hands because they're not good acquisition targets because their equipment's obsolete. So, you know, companies like Liberty, NexTier, and ProPetro, you know, there's no value in you going to acquire them. You're better off just building your own equipment and focusing on tier 1 stuff. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. Couldn't agree more. Do you guys believe your pricing models are keeping pace, you know, with inflation and tariffs and all the hoopla going around on the tariff stuff, with equipment wear and tear, et cetera? Do you think your pricing models are keeping up, or you feel like you're playing catch up with your customers? I imagine raising prices is easier said than done.
there's always that bit of lag as the pendulum swings back and forth, right? It's prices tend to come down very quickly when the market's heading down. They don't seem to swing back the other direction as quickly. I think given that people know that the dust hasn't settled yet on tariff stuff, and I don't think it's hit the market yet either. I think discussion of it's been there for a while. You know, I know our logistics group and supply chain teams are looking at that stuff on a daily basis, trying to get our heads around it and have the conversations up front. I think, you know, that's another thing that's like also changed dramatically in the past 10 years is been a higher level of transparency between service provider and operators, to where you can literally show them like this was what we paid for this 6 months ago. This is what we're paying right now. I want to make 10% on it, or, you know, whatever it's going to be. I want to make a number. If we go down, then you guys are in worse shape as it is. You know, it's and that's about partnering with your customers. I think that's the big thing is having that relationship where you can talk rather than the old school model of just beating each other up constantly. To bring them in and say, look, we're partnering in this, because at the end of the day, what's best for Liberty is to pump as many stages as designed in a shorter period of time safely. That is the exact same goal of all of our customers. They want to pay less, we want them to pay more. But if we, as an industry, shift the focus a little bit more on achieving the things that are mutually achievable, we get to a much better place when that unpleasant conversation happens.
I completely agree. I think, you know, I like how you use the term partnership, and, you know, it's aligning goals, and like you said, you know, having that transparency sometimes really helps. And, you know, we're seeing more and more kind of, we'll call it creative pricing models, or, you know, incentive based, where, you know, where when they win, we win. And, you know, it's no longer someone trying to get one up on the other, or, you know, an unfair kind of treatment between companies in a sense. But, you know, it's like I said, aligning the goals of the operation. We're all trying to achieve the same thing. We all have the same, you know, metrics that we're trying to hit, and, you know, incentivizing each other is a great way to get, you know, keep that pace with the pricing models.
I agree with everything they said. Just, I guess, in reflection of the pricing model question, my answer is no. I don't believe our pricing models are keeping up. There's just the back to the uncertainty. It's just, you know, if anybody knew the answers to those, they'd probably, you know, not be working anymore. But I think it can get worse, and compounded by market volatility. It's just, there's a lot of uncertainties in the market right now. And I don't mean to, everything's not doom and gloom. We're going to be okay.
Yeah.
But as far as, correctly knowing what's coming, it's a big question mark.
No doubt.
Yeah, I think that, adding in different points within, contracts of kind of rediscussing or renegotiating where we're at based off of kind of the market conditions. I mean, you put a year-long contract on there, who knows how it's going to be in 6 months. Being able to talk about that, talk through it is extremely important. And you probably got to look at whether they're keeping pace is probably on a contract to contract, crew to crew basis.
No question about it. If we all had a crystal ball, gentlemen, right, we wouldn't be on this panel right now talking about some of these issues. All right, how do you guys strike the balance between cost efficiency and operational excellence? It's the topic we just covered, or the question we just covered, is a good segue to this one. Because efficiency is the name of the game, right? You guys, to Ben's point, you want to complete as many stages as you possibly can safely for your customers, and and that, if you do that, your customers win and you guys win. But how do you strike that balance, between managing costs and being more efficient, and keeping a really high level of operational excellency? Which, by the way, I would say your three companies are top of the list when it comes to operational excellence. At least that's the reputation you have in the marketplace. So clearly you're doing a good job at it. But striking that balance is a challenge. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on how you do that.
I'll take the first crack. I'm sure Andrew and Ben are probably going to be saying a lot of the same stuff. It really comes down to, it's a big complex subject, but to simplify it, it's all about making value-based decisions. Defining the known unknowns, and then I hate to keep bringing up uncertainty, but figuring out what you don't know and making sure that you don't know, so that you can then go to the stuff you can control, and spend time on that. Measuring what matters, really defining that is just a big deal to us, so that we can, action on whatever we can control, going back to like our cost structure, our cost variables. And all that just kind of bundles down into just being cost efficient, being the best we can at the cheapest price for our customers, and just getting to the goal together.
I completely agree. It's tough to, put one ahead of the other. And so, really, operational excellence is paramount. You lose work, don't win work if you don't perform. But at the same time, we're running a business, and cost efficiency is key in that. And so understanding what your costs are and being able to put capital at, put money into what can help you either lower your costs or improve your performance, and evaluating that, and looking at every single dollar that's going out of the company, and understanding what you're going to get in return. And if you're not getting those returns, pivoting and finding out what can is extremely important. And so, while they both play on each other, you just have to find the happy medium of what kind of CapEx you can put into it versus what kind of performance you're getting out of it.
I think I'm going to use the word automation, and I don't mean automation as in set it, forget it, and leave it, and it just does it on its own, but squeaking out those drips and drops of efficiencies by taking what was a manual process. Even, for example, with, your field engineers used to send out stage emails that required a bunch of copying and pasting and doing that. And, it's one of those things, it took 30 seconds, maybe a minute. Seems like nothing in an office environment, especially. We set it up to where it's all automated now. Basically, they hit a button, macros handle things, they check it, they hit a button, it's gone. Little things like that, where you start to save the keystrokes even. for the engineer, for the operator. Because again, we're not in that office environment. That's one of the things that it's always been fun for me working with outside industry folks, working on something, and they were like, "Hey, we made this thing for you. What do you think about it?" And I said, "Well, it took me 30 seconds to do it." They're like, "Yeah." I was like, "You have 3, not 30, because there's a company man sitting right behind you yelling at you trying to get that information." And so focusing on that type of stuff helps tremendously. You know, at the end of the day, we also, the other end of it is there's guys out there with the 8-pound sledgehammer that still got to put this stuff together. So how can we make their life easier there? You know, going to high pressure discharge hoses on horsepower. Easier in some regards, more difficult in other regards, but instead of trying to bend the stick iron around with all a set of chicksons to line it up perfectly, you get a little more wiggle room, you get a little more time back in your pocket, and that gives you the efficiencies.
Great. Good answers. Next topic is workforce management and restructuring. When I first got these questions, I didn't like them, so I rewrote them, gentlemen. I think it was a lot of times when you talk about downturns and restructuring, it could be sensitive topics, and I wanted to focus more on, I think a question that is more important, which is not restructuring and downsizing your workforce, but how do you retain talent, you know, not only during, you know, downturns, but also during upturns, right? You know, you guys have tons of really talented engineers on staff, and, you know, in the upturns, you know, they have options, right? They have opportunities to go make more money and, you know, get a bigger role or a bigger job. But also in downturns, you know, talented people, you know, they need to be nurtured. They need to be, you know, feel like their work is fulfilling, and, you know, have some sort of sense of accomplishment. And I think one of the things that your 3 companies, and the industry in general probably doesn't get enough credit for is retaining talent during, you know, upturns and downturns. And I'm curious to hear your thoughts on how you guys do that. You know, how you manage to keep, you know, the top engineers on staff. And engineers, it's not all about money, right? You know, sure, everybody wants a bigger salary and make an extra buck, but ultimately, you know, talented people, it's more than salary. So, you know, that's really what I wanted you guys to focus on.
From the engineering standpoint, I would say that, you know, we've pushed very hard within our group to maximize internal recruiting. You know, I could walk around the 4 floors of the office here, and probably every other or maybe third door, I'll see a former field engineer of mine. People that started off as interns are now running departments. So sort of pushing that internally, you know, getting somebody with the experience. Like, I've got people in just about every department right now, because, you know, that even goes to HR and accounting, where their knowledge of the field and the field lifestyle has paid dividends to those different departments that have no exposure directly to the field. I think that's been huge. You know, it's also talking internally with, if I find out that one of my field engineers is, or somebody in my staff is applying for a position within the company, and they don't get it, I want to know why. And I don't mean like go hold their feet to the fire. How come you didn't give my person this job? It's more, what were they lacking? Oh, they didn't know SolidWorks as well as you want. Fantastic. I'm gonna start getting my people some SolidWorks training if they want it. You know, whatever it is. That's a silly example, but it is one example. Oh, you wish they knew Python better. Fantastic. Guess what? We'll start a Python training program. Because again, that is it. I want to keep the best people. I also want to promote the best people. That's something I saw when I was at other service companies, was sometimes people would promote away their problems. They'd sort of see somebody who's pardon my language, would a pain in the ass, and help him find a new home, and then hold people in a position because they're their best person. It's like, well, do you have a plan for that guy? Or do you just don't want to lose him because it's gonna make your life harder? To me, it's I got to promote my best people, because if my best people see the worst people getting promoted, they're going to emulate that behavior. If they see their best people getting promoted, they're going to emulate that behavior. So it's a spiral up or spiral down situation, depending on how you handle your people in that situation.
Yeah, I look at it very similarly. I think, similar here when you look around the office and, HR, supply chain, sales, whatever that is, you can look at a bunch of different field engineers, and, having that experience is crucial. And when you're running this business, and, I always think that development of people is really important no matter the market. I think, on the downside of the market, obviously it keeps morale up, it keeps them going strong and working hard. And then on the upside of the market, that can, help develop them into better engineers, and, having, development plans for them of, hey, you can, if you're happy where you're at, great. If you're, want something new, here are the positions that are open. Let us help you get there, and let us help you kind of work up your career ladder, that where you see yourself going. And if you get somewhere and you don't like it, hey, let's find out why not, and let's get you the training and development to get you, become a better employee, and, an even better individual. And, maintaining that strong team and keeping, the right people in the right positions is key in running a business successfully.
I guess just speak on a couple of things they said. So, I mean, what Ben said, it sounds super familiar to ProPetro. One of the things I advocate for is just promoting our engineers to other departments, letting them go over to another department and assist with some type of problem that they're having. A lot of times that kind of compounds into, man, they want a new position, and being okay with letting your guys and girls go. Because the reality is, if you don't let them grow, they're going to grow somewhere else.
Mhm.
So let them grow internally. It's a great thing. Like Ben said, I can walk around this company and see ex-field engineers, engineering department personnel all over the company. Sometimes in departments you would have never thought of, just like kind of Ben was saying, HSC and HR. But it's a good thing. Putting intelligent people into the right position and letting them do the job is the right thing to do. As far as like kind of the base question goes back to is the lean management, making sure you don't accidentally bloat, keeping the right workload on your personnel, and making sure you don't overhire and putting yourself into a risky position if we enter a slower business segment. It's don't let yourself get there.
Great answers, gentlemen. What are some of the effective workforce restructuring strategies that support long-term stability? It's kind of a loaded question, but thought maybe throw that one at you.
No, certainly. What I would say is, kind of the metaphorical, don't let the cart drive the, or don't let the horse drive cart drive the horse, or don't let the tail wag the dog. What that boils down to is, find out what your company's strategy is supposed to be and stick to it, and let your strategy drive your company, not vice versa. Because if you stick to your strategy, you pick the right strategy, you're going to be in a healthy position no matter what. So, and then on the customer side, and market, figure out what the market wants, what your customer wants, what their goals, their targets are, so that you can find alignment. And that boils down to a lot of different things, whether it's technology investment or R&D. But if you can find alignment between the market and your customers' goals, you're going to have a lot higher chance of success.
Yeah, I think we've preached on a lot of keeping a lean organization is, the ultimate strategy. And, during downturns, it's not uncommon to ask someone to wear multiple hats. And so you need to be able to consider if those individual employees can do that, and their ability to do that without, affecting, work output. And so, one of the things that I like to think about kind of going into Shane is Shane's comments are, a lot of people view pumping companies as just that. We're pumping companies. We pump fluid and proppant and chemicals from point A to point B, but really we're a problem solving company. And, we're out there and making sure that you maintain problem solvers within the company and aligning your goals to make sure that you're solving the right problems is key. And you don't necessarily need to tie someone down to their experience in a way. So if someone's spent the majority of their career moving up in frac, I've seen it where all of a sudden you throw them on the cement side and they thrive. And so it's really understanding technical experience is important, but at the end of the day, when you take the product out of it, we're just running a business. And if you can make sure that you're bringing in more money than you're spending, and having people that can do that in the right positions, it's really a lot easier to maintain some of that long-term stability.
Yeah, I guess I agree with everything that they've just mentioned, and I'm not sure I even have a whole lot to add to that. I mean, I think that is keeping, being ready for it if you can, I suppose, but with the volatility of the market, if you end up we look back at something like COVID, obviously, sort of unprecedented market decline. Difficult decisions might need to be made sometimes. How do you avoid that? Well, in that situation, I don't know that you can necessarily. It's, can somebody else do something even temporary? It's, for a frac can example, maybe a crew shut down for a while. Cool. Can that guy run sand trucks for us for a while? Can he do some other function within the company that he's got the skills to do? And you maintain that frac knowledge set, even though for maybe the next 3 or 6 months, he's doing a more menial task. Fantastic. Keep him going, keep him part of the team. And then you can flex back. Because that's, I think, what we've sort of always seen, right? Is that the price, the cure for low oil prices is low oil prices. Hopefully it starts spooling the economy up, and then all of a sudden we got to make more of this stuff, and the prices come right back up. And to not have to rebuild from zero again is a huge component.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Thanks, gentlemen. All right, moving on to the next topic, business strategy and organizational resilience. Can you share some examples of how each of your organizations adapts to market uncertainties, and what role does service diversification play in long-term survival?
For NexTier, I've been through quite a few different reorganizings since I've been here. Like I said earlier, we're a consolidation of a bunch of different diverse companies come together, and with that, there's a lot of strengths that you can identify, and taking your time to find the right employees for the right position and understanding the strengths that you have. And if someone has a strength over here and their weakness is over here, having another person whose strengths are over here is extremely important to being able to be prepared for some of the uncertainty that's ahead of you. And looking at being able to kind of look ahead and have a good enough idea of what's to come, and being able to proactively address a lot of the challenges and that uncertainty is very important. It's tough, but we saw with diversification in the long term of when the gas prices went down, people moved fleets from East Texas to West Texas, and so being able to quickly diversify where your equipment's going, who you're working for, the different technologies you have to approach a broader base of customers is being able to lean on one more than the other in different times you're able to mitigate as much as possible some of those uncertainties.
Andrew.
Yeah, I mean,
Ben or Shane?
Yeah, sure. I mean, we've in 2011 when we kicked off with our first frac crew, we were a mom and pop shop, and as we grew in the frac world, we also began to vertically integrated. So not even diversify, it was more of a vertical integration of fluid ends, now manufacturing of all equipment and sand mines and wireline, you know, with the OneStim acquisition. And you always do it better, yeah, hopefully, but at least your fate is in your own hands, and you can go and tweak those knobs to again squeak out a little more of the efficiencies you might be able to get from it. You know, recently we have made a large announcement on energy generation side of things. So we are going to be, besides the frac, just the pure frac world and stimulation world, going into power generation. So not just for frac crews, but for car charging stations and data centers, and that ties in well with the LPI development, but which is our natural gas system. So yeah, I'm very excited for that. I think the potential in that market can be tremendous. And I think those two things will work in concert with each other.
That's what I would say on diversification. Got to do due diligence when you're evaluating the potential diversification. You know, just like Ben mentioned, you know, ProPetro is getting into the power gen business market, but when you're going into those evaluations, you really have to do due diligence to make sure that when you enter those markets, you're going to be able to really compete. So, you know, at ProPetro, we kind of look at it and make sure that kind of the mentality is we got to be the best. That's what we're striving. Try and chase perfection. You can't ever get there if you don't chase it, I guess. So if you think you can enter that market and you can compete to be the best, that's going to go a long way into removing a lot of the uncertainties in the market. Can't remove them all, but if you can remove as many of them as you can, you're going to just really set yourself up for success. It's not easy, but that's just the best way you can go about it.
Good stuff. Thanks, Shane. All right, service company collaboration is the next topic. How can better collaboration with operators enhance service performance and stability? I think, Ben, you touched on this a little bit about, you know, having a partnership with your customers and having, you know, some level of transparency, which I think has helped not only the relationship, but it's helped, you know, kind of get away from the, you know, beating each other up, you know, and upturns and downturns. You know, what more can you share there?
Sure, I can touch on something that we've been dealing with not too long ago. Was you know, every year I survey all of my field engineers, and one of the questions I always ask is, what's the worst part of your job? You know, and as a manager, that's part of our job, is to try and lighten that or eliminate it if possible. You know, I don't want to hear a guy in North Dakota tell me the worst part of my job is it's cold in the winter in North Dakota. Yeah, I know, man. Not much I can do about that. You got a solution? You want a different jacket? What am I going to do for you? But here in this case, one of the ones I was hearing a lot was the field dealing with third-party data companies, the Porvas of the world, the Cold Bores, and they were reaching out directly to field engineers to make tweaks to the system in the van and whatnot, and collaborated with some of my competitors, but people I knew over there, to go, hey, I want to start pushing back on these third-party data groups to make this more efficient. If my people are telling me the worst part of their job is you, I need to talk to you, and we need to figure out a way to do this. So we worked with some other service companies as well to help push these guys into a position where now it's all done through API handovers in the cloud. The engineer doesn't, if he's doing it correct from our end, he doesn't ever hear from him anymore. I think things like that would be great. I'd love to get together with more industry folks to help standardize data. You know, the drilling industry did it years ago, and we're still using sort of an outdated system there. But, you know, can we come up with a standardized channel list? I mean, that's not going to give one or the other a competitive advantage if we're all doing something well together. Although it always seems like with the the cyclic nature of the business that we may start to work on something and then now we're back into boom mode and everybody's too busy to work on that thing anymore. But I think there's a lot we can do. But part of it's, you don't want to give away proprietary information necessarily, but I think there's a lot of things that can be done that could mutually affect all of us in a beneficial mode and our customers.
Great. So I'm hearing improved transparency, partnerships, data sharing. What about around planning efficiency? Take and Andrew, anything you can add there?
Yeah. So one of the things that NexTier started doing is, we'll take drones and fly them over locations before we even get there. And from there we can, utilize some software that we can individually place each piece of equipment and have a really good solid plan of where every piece of equipment's going to go before we even get there. So, ultimately right there, it drives a little bit better efficiencies on the rig ups, rig downs, and, having that discussion with everyone before we even have a piece of equipment on location is really insightful. And, when you start having discussions, you start realizing some of the challenges that you have are solvable and, a lot more, attainable. And so the more discussions we have, I think, the better the industry as a whole is going to be. And, as Ben said, with the data, drilling figured it out a while back, how to standardize data and completions, everyone, I think, wants to have the secret sauce and have their proprietary stuff. And, it's almost like we boomed a little too fast where everyone split off in a million directions. And, getting everyone to come back together, I think is, going to be challenging, but I think it's, really, it helped a lot. And, when you start talking with the operators and service companies, discussions can only help. That's how I view it. And, it doesn't matter whether it's, a smaller meeting or whether a conference like HFTC or a workshop or, some kind of consortium, once you start talking, you can start solving problems and you can start addressing a lot of challenges that people, it's maybe too big to take on by one person or one company.
Great. Good stuff.
Yeah, I
Shane,
think
your thoughts.
Yeah, I think Andrew really hit it on the head. And it really just boils down to something simple. It's just constant dialogue with the operators, with your adjacent service providers and your vendors as well. To give an example, is just one of our customers has really driven us to just really maintain category management because it affects them. The sub vendors on location through us affect our customer. Maintaining those communications bilaterally, vertically, whatever you want to call it. If you have constant dialogue, that's just going to continuously bring the problems to the front so that you can discuss them. And if you can really have an open, honest discussion, don't get your feelings hurt. Let's put the problem on the table and find a solution. That's one of the biggest things. And again, it's just something simple, talking with people.
Great. All great points, gentlemen. And I think, in the end, really everything that you all just mentioned is only going to help you build stronger long-term relationships with your operator and E&P company customers. So good stuff. All right. So we have a little over 10 minutes remaining. I want to leave some time at the end for some attendee questions. There's still 2 topics to cover. I'm going to consolidate them quickly and just ask you one question on each. We'll try to run through them quickly and then we'll open it up. But quick public service announcement to the attendees. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat and we'll try to leave some time at the end to get through as many of them as we can. So next topic is ESG considerations and sustainability. How is ESG shaping the way service companies operate and invest?
I'll address this. Every customer that we have has kind of different desires, different goals, expectations. And again, it boils down to talking to them, understanding what their desires, what their goals are, so that you can meet their expectations, meet their goals, and help them get there. But you really just have to talk to them, understand their viewpoints, and know what is important to them. What do they want to measure? outside of that, on the more practical viewpoint, on the ESG front, it really comes down to what's coming down the future, what's coming down the pipeline, and it's probably just more gas burning equipment. I think that's just a given. Whether it's direct drives, whether it's e-fleets with gen sets, I personally believe that's the future. There's a lot of pros to it.
I agree. I think, operators are really asking for it. Investors are watching it, and, we're expected to demonstrate it. And so, a lot of it, like Shane said, is making sure that the goals that you have are overlapping with the goals that your customer has, and really driving in a partnership towards those goals. And so, being able to be proactively building some of those sustainable operations and creating that value for operators, and really not just operators, the communities and investors as a whole. It's tough, it can be expensive, but really, driving towards some of those lower emission solutions like natural gas, direct drive electric is the way I see us going forward.
I would agree with all those statements. I would also add that, there's some other things we do as an industry. I think we've done it because it makes sense on the dollar side, not even the ESG side, but it ends up being an ESG win. More concentrated chemistry, right? You're not with certain chemistry you bring into location, it's cut way back with waters or oils. We pump a lot of dry FR, so you're not transporting the carrier fluid anymore. That's fewer truckloads. That's less dust kicked up. That's less trucks going through neighborhoods. I think things like that are huge. I think innovations that we've had on sand transport over the years has been huge as well. I mean, when I was first in the industry, everybody was using pneumatic trailers, and it would take 45 minutes to offload pneumatically a trailer into a bin, and it created a lot of dust, created a lot of noise, and a lot of dwell time. Now with containerized proppant or belly dump, the truck still holds roughly the same amount of proppant, but they're spending more time on paperwork than offloading, and they're in and out in 4 minutes. That's a game changer. I do think the electrification or the gasification is going to be very interesting. And it's one of the things I chat with some of my young engineers about now is, the sort of microgrid setup that may happen in certain places, Permian being a great potential for that, and then with the development of small platform nuclear reactors, by the end of their career, they may be fracking with electrical equipment powered by nuke, which I think is pretty wild. It's not happening right now, but that's a real possibility. I think that's pretty wild. We can innovate things through equipment and processes. If there's a need, a desire, and especially if it becomes financially advantageous to ourselves and our customers. We've pushed back as Liberty on some of the traditional ESG thinking, and we put out our ESG report is called Bettering Human Lives, and it's a focus on that, is that energy enriches people's lives, and to put things in place that end up stifling that development is a hindrance. So can we focus on the things that bring us to a better place faster and for more people? Especially the developing world. I think that's one of the huge things where we've pushed is we don't need less natural gas. We need more natural gas. We need more natural gas to more people faster, more efficiently, and that will actually save lives. That is the goal of ESG, is to make the world better for human beings, hopefully, and bringing natural gas to undeveloped worlds where we've got millions of people a year dying from indoor air pollution because they're cooking over traditional biomass. That's sad. That's really sad. And we can fix that. Not us by individual, but we as an industry can help move that forward, move that needle to make human existence better around the planet.
A great report. I've read it, and I've shared it, not only with our employees, but also with some friends and family who are not big fans of oil and gas. I'm a
Actually,
big
fans
fan.
of oil and gas, they just say they're not.
Well, I live in Philadelphia, so I can't get away from it. It's prevalent in, you know, the greater Philadelphia area, mainly because people just don't know. They don't understand. But that report's great because it's factual, and it really talks about how natural gas can be, you know, the perfect bridge fuel to get people out of energy poverty, and you know, give us the bridge to, you know, some type of either energy transition or renewable energy or whatever it may be, whatever that looks like. But fossil fuels will always play a role in that for sure. All right, guys, we have about 5 minutes. I got 2 quick questions. I'm going to need to quick rapid fire answer. And this one really is about the future of service companies. First one is, what trends are likely to reshape the service industry sector over the next 5 years? Think automation, AI, digitalization, equipment innovation, anything you think, any trend you think that's going to influence or reshape the industry over the next 5 years. And lastly, what advice do you have for new engineers or businesses entering the sector? And you don't each have to answer both, but feel free.
I'll take the first stab. You know, I think all of the above, when you start talking about automation, you know, AI, digitalization, all that, you know, I think it enables smarter, faster decisions. We're collecting more data than ever, and the key is how we can process it and act on it in real time and as fast as possible. And you know, exploring those opportunities, and not all of them are going to be successes, but you know, being able to take that human factor out of operations as much as possible, I think is going to be, you know, a trend going forward. And on the advice, you know, I think, you know, I see a lot of problem finders, you know, throughout different companies, and, you know, working extremely hard to be a problem solver is what I would say. You know, no matter how you look at it, when you take a step back, all we do in a job, all the job is solving problems, whether you're solving a problem for someone or solving a problem for a company. Don't just find them, solve them.
Great answer. Thanks, Andrew.
I think the trend toward simul-frac or dual frac or trimul-frac is going to be growing steadily. I think that's going to also lead to the need for more AI or automated functions within the field itself. And I think those will drive each other simultaneously. And the advice to a young engineer would be, get close to the wellhead. You need to spend some time in your career being close to a wellhead. Not 6 months, spend a couple years if you can working and doing this, so it's not just a computer exercise. Learn the sights, the smells, the tastes of things. That's critical.
Great advice, Ben.
Trends, kind of what's going to affect us in the future. One of the biggest drivers, I think, is going to be M&A. Just, I think less companies is going to just drive competition up. It's just really just like, as the cost goes down, we got to drive the cost down and drive the quality up. Gas burning equipment, digitalization is a huge one. With obviously the reward is the output. It's a no-brainer. I think all of our companies are working on it just because it's so obvious. And that's at large, I think it's really still in its infancy. Because this stuff's only going to get more and more powerful as we build it up, you know, curate it and feed it. Advice for young engineers, kind of the same thing I always tell them, you know, come to work, be enjoyable to work with, be adaptable to change, especially as you get older. Just accept the world changes, you got to change with it. Develop your soft skills, learn how to, you know, speak to anybody, communication skills, interacting with people of diverse backgrounds, especially in the oil field. Handle the hard tasks. Don't be afraid to take the challenges. You're going to grow from it so much. And then, you know, just like kind of softball answer, stay connected to the social industries. You'll meet new people. You'll build new ideas together, and you're going to find a lot of really cool stuff there. And then, I guess the final thing is, you know, don't abandon, you know, good ethics. Kind of boiling back down to like what Ben was talking about. You know, we're all here to, you know, better the earth. You know, we get a bad rap from a lot of industries, but we provide so much to the people that we work for and the people that get our product at the end of the line. Maintain good work ethic and good work ethics.
Great advice. Thanks, Shane. All right. Ahmed, we might be out of time, but I'm happy to stay on if our esteemed panelists want to stay on for a couple of minutes just to answer some attendee questions. I don't want to over.
No problem.
Okay, great. So it's just a couple of questions from the attendees, which I think are actually really good questions, and appreciate you guys staying on a little bit longer to answer these. So the first question is, what are the specific safety protocols and technologies being implemented to mitigate the risks associated with corrosive elements? Great question. Anyone want to take that?
I think one of the things that NexTier does is, in terms of safety and making sure we're not corroding equipment too quickly, is we have a water quality monitoring unit on the upstream side of the blender, and so we're actively monitoring the water source that we're connected to and pumping on. And I think with more and more customers, especially in the Permian, starting like pumping with produced water, that's some nasty stuff. And when you start pumping with that, you start seeing a lot more iron failures, and God forbid anyone is anywhere near that, and any kind of failure is terrifying. And so being able to actively monitor that is really important. And ultimately, I think a key in mitigating the risks of some of these failures is minimizing the footprint on location, and introducing different safety protocols, making sure that the red zone is completely off limits. We have cameras that we're putting up, monitoring, making sure that no one's stepping in. And if someone steps in a red zone, you're fired. And it's not a joke at how dangerous it can be. And making sure that you're addressing that as actively as possible is important.
I guess I'll just bundle on to what Andrew was saying. Really the best way to handle it is building up a true culture by definition of safety. It's hard to get there. The easiest way to get to what the spiritual level is to get injured. It's the worst way to get there. Like building that culture of safety is one of the most important things to my company. I'm sure it is to Ben and Andrew's company as well. And zero tolerance policies on red zone. There's no gray area there. We can't afford it.
Mm-hmm.
It is amazing. I mean, they're just the red zone policies these days compared to what was done in the industry when I first started was. I look back at it and go, I get chills thinking about it, because if I saw that happening now, I'd lose my mind. But it was standard practice back then. So I think we've definitely moved forward with that, which has been great. Iron control, checking the water, I think is a huge thing. We pump a lot of water and sand, which generally are the two worst things for any equipment anywhere, and we pump it at a high rate and high pressure. You tear stuff up. It's just what you're going to do. We're pumping liquid sandpaper through metal devices. They don't love it. So knowing, water quality, I think is a huge thing. That is, especially as we go down the road of more and more produced water. I mean, or for example, you get somebody running out of control on upstream biocide, chlorine dioxide mixing it way more than it needs to be to kill the bugs, and it starts to kill equipment. Noticing that is huge. So.
Oh, thanks. Next question is, how are service companies adapting to the limited pipeline capacity, and what are some potential solutions to alleviate the bottlenecks?
I guess from my perspective on that one, I don't want to say not my problem. It's a customer problem. It's my problem for the customer. It's not necessarily my. I don't necessarily have the ability to help them with that. One thing can be the takeaway capacity that's so small in comparison, but using field gas to run frac equipment. keeping it away from the pipeline to begin with. Maybe that's something, but again, relatively small compared to pipeline issues.
Sure.
I don't think I can, I'm gonna be with Ben. It's not our forte. We're in the service industry. I'm in the hydraulic fracturing industry. It's not the midstream industry, but I will speak on the Permian Basin and just some of the even learnings as of recent. Being here since in the early 2010, 2011, the infrastructure of the Permian Basin is one, if not the largest oil and gas basins. It's developed tremendously over time. People are hard at work solving these problems. It's grown drastically. Gas takeaway. It's almost like a spider web out here, and you don't even realize it. The stuff we can do is be good at gas burning equipment. And I think Andrew and Ben would echo this, but when we got into the gas burning equipment on the DGB equipment, it was a little new, and there were some hurdles there, but we've gotten really good at it. Gas substitution is at all-time highs, and it's almost second nature. So providing that avenue to redirect gas outside of the infrastructure on the midstream side, we're here for it.
Hey, thanks. All right, next question. We got two left. What impact do operators' M&A activities in 2024, I would say 2023 and 2024, have on pumping service companies' business?
It can be a good thing or a bad thing. Depends, if you're working for them and which side you're working for, and whether it was a merger or a true acquisition. I think it's a struggle when you start seeing a lot of them go down, and I think relationships are key in all of that. And even if you're working for both sides, you're working for company A and company B, and they merge. If you had 2 fleets for both of them, who says they're going to keep 4 fleets going? They might drop down to 3, they might drop down to 2. So even in a situation where have great relationships with both sides, it can negatively affect your operation. And if you're working for a smaller company and they get absorbed by a larger company, and you're not in with that larger company, it's a whole new realm of trying to resell to a new company. And not that those relationships don't matter, because they do, but sometimes you have to pivot to the new decision maker and start going down that route. So it can be good, but at the same time, it produces a lot of challenges that we have to address.
Fully
I couldn't
agree,
agree more, Andrew. I couldn't agree more. We've been on both sides of the equation where it's, an acquisition deal helped us or it hurt us. Using Liberty as an example, we had a customer in the DJ that was our biggest customer, and Liberty was pumping that product for us. We were in the specialty chemicals business, by the way, if you weren't aware, but Liberty was pumping that product. That customer was acquired, and that business went to zero overnight. And then we've been slowly working to get it back to where it was, but it's still a work in progress. So yeah, both sides. It really depends on which side of the equation you're on when the activity happens. But
yeah, and as you said, I was just looking at a presentation we had the other day where it was 2 + 2 does not equal 4 in an M&A world. It can equal 3 very quickly, and that smaller customer base. It can be challenging, especially if you fall on the wrong side of it. Then it really sucks. But even if you fall on the right side, it could still tip the apple cart a little bit.
for sure.
I guess the only thing I'd really say on that is, if you're in this industry long enough, it's the ups and downs. You kind of get used to it in some respect, but best thing you can do is, do your job, be good at what you do, run lean, and make the best of the situation. Try your best and see where it puts you.
I would also add to the young engineers in the meeting here. Don't burn bridges, because you never know who you're going to be working for in the future. Somebody who's underneath you in your first 5 years could be your boss 5 years later, or they could be your customer. And that customer, if you burn a bridge with that customer, they could be a different customer a week from now. You never know. Your reputation is big. So you don't want to tarnish that. And that goes back to what Shane was saying too on business ethics. You know, don't be a liar. You lie once, you're a liar, and it's a problem.
Agreed. Agreed. I love that point, Shane. You know, just be good at what you do. Don't forget about ethics, and usually things work out. And talking about the M&A activity, you know, I say to our team, these deals, they tend to be a short-term curse, but a long-term blessing. You know, typically the acquiring companies are bigger companies, which presents a much bigger opportunity, you know, for us as a service company. So if you look at it as an opportunity, then, you know, yeah, short term, it's going to be a little bit painful, but, you know, you got to focus on, you know, the opportunity ultimately. And if you're good at what you do, you can be very successful. Thanks for that comment. Andrew, anything to add there? And we got one last question, I promise, and we'll let you guys go.
No, I think they covered a lot of it.
Great. All right. Very last one. How are service companies addressing the concerns of local communities regarding environmental impacts and social responsibility? Ben, I'm sure you deal with a lot of that in Colorado.
Yeah. Colorado, it's something we always like to talk about, our social license to operate. You know, for example, here in the DJ, I'm sure you can go online and see satellite photos of the proximity to some of these neighborhoods, quite nice neighborhoods a lot of the time. And that, quite frankly, was an encroachment of home developers onto oil field areas. And it was working with them to work around that. You know, there were noise ordinance in place. And we found out, even with sound walls, we were within the ordinance spec, but people were still complaining. And part of that was, yeah, just because something's legal doesn't mean it's not annoying, you know? And that's where we developed our quiet fleets, which was one of the most shocking moments I've ever had going to location. Was the first full quiet fleet. You know, you start hearing like, what is that noise? I never heard that noise on location before. And it's like the air conditioning compressor on the parts trailer we have out there. It was just wild. I think that's a huge thing. I think, you know, what can you do to tamp down your trucking? Can you work with the community to go, all right, between these hours, we're going to not dispatch trucks through this neighborhood because that's when the school buses are coming through, or we're going to engage that local client, that neighbor down the street, and ask what we can do to do better. What's annoying you guys? And, you know, part of it too is also, I think, getting in front of the problem and saying, I know this is new to you. This process is going to take 3 weeks. I think that calms some people down just in itself, because all of a sudden they start seeing, well, the rig came and then this happened and then this happened and this happened. And then we're there obviously making a lot more noise, a lot more ruckus. But then showing them what this is going to look like when we're gone. And the pad is this big sound walls come down and the pad gets beautified, for lack of terminology. There's one pad here, one of our customers did several years ago, where the community got really engaged, and it's a truckless pad now, basically. So they're not going to take oil away, they're not going to take water away. Everything is piped off location. It's pretty amazing. We bring every year I take a bunch of senators and congressmen out there to show them that pad, and this is what we can do when we need to do it, right? The big ugly oil field doesn't have to be where it shouldn't be. And I think that's one of the things we love to do. You know, do we need to do the same thing out in the middle of nowhere, West Texas? No, not necessarily. But in a residential neighborhood in beautiful Colorado, yeah, rock and roll. Let's do those things. So
Yeah, I think it goes back to transparency, right, Ben? At the same transparency that you guys are implementing with your customers, you got to implement with the local communities. I think educating them, you know, and being transparent goes a long way.
I think another thing on that too is to be for me to in Colorado, just like Shane in Midland, to be able to say, I live here too. So the inconvenience you're dealing with, I'm dealing with it as well. Trust me, I'm doing everything I can to minimize that for all of us. So
Yeah, I think a lot of this comes back to continued dialogue. People start getting really annoyed and angry when dialogue stops, and I think as a whole, the oil field has historically done a poor job of some of that education to some of those communities, and being able to communicate what's happening, how it's happening, the safeguards that are there, and how we're not here to destroy the world, we're here to help the world, is extremely key. And the oil field seems to be doing a lot better with that. But yeah, keeping the dialogue going and getting the feedback from the communities is extremely important.
Yeah. So really quick story, kind of related to what Ben was talking about. There's 5, 6, 7 years ago, I was laying in bed one night about to go to sleep, and it sounded like somebody was outside my house, like almost with like a very low diesel truck, and said, man, what is that been going on for like 10, 15 minutes? And finally, I stepped outside and I was like, listened to it for a second. There's nobody out there. I said, that's a frack fleet. And it's like, who's fracking? I pulled up one of our apps looking at our location. It's like, that's my frack fleet. And said, man, that's the truth is, just because something's legal doesn't make it not illegal. We're all humans, and we can understand that stuff. The beautiful thing about the oil and gas industry is we got a lot of very, very intelligent people that will figure things out. We're going to make things better. We're going to improve. And when it comes down to, looking at local and global communities, it's, I guess where I look from is like my roots, country Texan boys, be a good neighbor, be a good steward of your business, be a good neighbor. Sometimes it comes down to just having to talk with somebody. Hearing, listening goes a long ways.
Great answer. Thanks for that, gentlemen. All right, well, that pretty much wraps it up. Great panel, great discussion. It was truly my honor and pleasure to be your moderator. Couple key takeaways that I think really stuck out in my mind that we talked about today. Efficiency obviously is the name of the game. I love what you said, Ben, complete as many stages as you can safely. Partnership and transparency with your customers, I think has been kind of a common theme as well. Help strengthen the relationships with your customers, and that's kind of changed over the years. It wasn't always like that. Keep recruiting internally, to retain and cultivate talent, when it comes to your engineers, I thought was a great takeaway. And then last but not least is, at the end of the day, the volatility and the uncertainty in the marketplace is real. Price, Shane, I think you mentioned price is not keeping up, with the costs and the volatility and uncertainty around the marketplace. But companies like yours are good at being quick to adapt and nimble. And there's no doubt in our minds that with your reputation in the industry and the talent that you have in your teams, you'll be able to withstand any downturn or any uncertainty or volatility in the marketplace. So kudos to you guys. Thanks for answering all the questions. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Solomon. He's a professor, University of Houston, and co-chair for the conference, who wants to give, this is our last session, so he wants to give just some closing remarks. So Dr. Solomon, the floor is yours, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was a really, really great finish to an excellent 2 days of discussion. Thank you very much. I heard really good comments, especially in this session. I really like the comments about ethics. That is extremely, extremely important, and we try to teach that to our students to make sure ethics is number one. This brings the conference to a finish, to closure. I would like to first thank the people that volunteered their time very generously to these 2 days. We had 14 experts in the industry that talked to our young students and young professionals. This was really impressive. We had almost 1,700 people registering for this session. So you have lots of people listening to you, and hopefully they are going to learn from you. Since this was very successful, I've been listening to almost everything that was said in the conference. We plan to repeat the session, not the sessions, but the conference again in September. And I want to ask everyone, people that presented as well as people that are attending, to tell us what they want to hear next time. So around mid of September of this year, 6 months from now, we plan to have another conference. Thank you so much, and I can't stop saying thanks to everyone that volunteered their time. Have a great year, gentlemen. Thank you very much.
You as well. Thanks, Dr. Solomon.
Thank you.
All right, gents, we'll see you out in the field at some point or another, I'm sure. Have a great rest of your day. And thanks again for your time and for staying a little bit longer. Appreciate it. It was really helpful. Great panel.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone.